So we got several problems, big problems. COVID. We've got the climate crisis, and we've got inequality, and this the whole thing of the working class not making enough to be able to work, and then this is the class of people who create all the value. So if they don't make a living, how do they get to their jobs? And if they don't get an education, how do they know how to do a job in the modern world, and so on like that. Okay, so there's really just one solution to the whole thing, and that is that all these problems have their roots in capitalism. Okay, the COVID crisis, it was mismanaged. All the socialist countries did fine. They're not. That's not where the United States is the one that did bad. Because we had too much greed, and we didn't take things seriously. We didn't get enough of we didn't take people out of the workforce that couldn't work safely. We just exposed people carelessly, and Trump, yeah, okay, was a major reason for that. But it's useless to put all the ills of capitalism on Trump. We're almost rid of him. We've got another guy, Biden, who's just as bad, almost. Or maybe he's worse, I don't know. But he's not the solution anyway. Climate crisis is going to get us. So we don't have decades to spend figuring out some long-term project of how to change the people in Congress and how to so what are we going to do with Biden in there? Nothing will fundamentally change. That's what he said. He meant it. He's been in this business for 45 years. He's not a changer. He's not a fixer. He's a business as usual, give them whatever they want over there on the other side of the aisle kind of guy. He just basically draws his salary and does nothing for it. So, well, except, of course, putting all the establishment Democrats into various remunerative offices. He's good at that. Climate crisis. We need to act real seriously. Build every American an electric car, whether they can afford it or not. We'll just build it for them anyhow. Stop production of gasoline cars and stop importation of gasoline cars cold right now. That's it. Just no, you can't build another one. So you might as well start retooling the factory today, because we're not going to let you make. You can't have another serial number. That car that's 10 minutes from finished on the line, too bad, scrap it out. And the reason that we have to do it that way is because we just have to be serious. We've got to move. Okay. We build solar farms by the square mile. That's easy. If anything, the United States is great at doing, it's going out and taking some crappy land in West Texas. Let me tell you something. There are so many sections, square miles, of crappy land in West Texas that you can barely even graze. It's so rocky and grungy, and it doesn't have enough rainfall, and it's worthless. But it gets lots of sun. And we got lots of people that worked in the oil field. We've got to stop the. It depends on whether you go direct or indirect subsidies, okay, but subsidies to the oil industry are about $200 to $700 billion a year. Okay, and this is for a product which is no longer competitive against solar, even though solar doesn't get the subsidies. We have to tell the oil companies, sorry, you're going to stop. No more new infrastructure, no more fracking ever. Just take that equipment apart and use it to make something else, because you're never going to be allowed to do that again. And close that whole thing down. No more new pipelines. No, you can't make it legal to run into protesters with your car. And if a cop does it even, I don't care what you do for a living. If you attack people, first of all, they have a right of self-defense. You attack them with a deadly weapon, they have a right to use deadly force against unlawful deadly force. which I say is a natural right. It's also in most state statutes. But the point is, got to stop with the petroleum and tell them, if you want to sell something at your gas stations, you can sell hydrogen, you can sell fast charging or exchange batteries, you can do all those things, but only renewables. Wind, geez, we got offshore oil platforms that are not producing oil even anymore, right? And they make them tear them down. Well, don't tear them down, just put a windmill on them, or actually a wind turbine if you want to be correct. And we can put a wind turbine on them and use the same rights of way where all the pipelines lead with the oil and carry some underground cables back to the shore, feed the power back, or underwater cables under the ground. That's under the water is what it is. You dig a trench in the sea bottom and you put your cable in there and you let the stuff be back on top of it again, the silt and crud. A lot of shallow water because the Gulf of Mexico only slopes an incredibly low 1 foot per mile is about the average. Just that I've seen from looking at depth sounders on offshore supply vessels. Okay, so we have to do all that renewable energy stuff. Okay, but that's going to pay. The idea that that is a money loser, no, that's wrong, because we have a whole lot of people that we need to put to work so that they can make a living, so that they can pay their rent and so on, and buy their groceries. And so it's kind of like the WPA, except the WPA, we didn't really need those bridges exactly. We just kind of needed it. The Green New Deal is a whole different thing. The Green New Deal, we vitally need that solar power now. We need to put it in section by section. Don't tell me about a solar farm that's not at least a square mile. I don't even want to hear about it. I want hundreds and hundreds of square miles. Okay, that's what it's going to take. And Texas is right in the middle of the country. So, I mean, I know we've got good places to put it because I live in one of them. So, modern monetary theory teaches, and I'm simply not going to argue about monetary theory. I'm not going to argue about the theory of gravitation either. If you don't believe in universal gravitation, that's fine. You're an idiot, and you're out of here. Modern monetary theory is simply, it's a fact. Whether you like it or don't, the deficit really doesn't make much difference. And inflation, which is the main thing that they're concerned with deficit spending, does not happen. It happens when the government wants to buy a lot of something that is short on the market. So it's inflationary to, buying gold. Everybody wants gold. So the dollar becomes worth less. If it gets harder and harder to get gold, people are willing to give more dollars for it, the value of the dollar goes down. But when you buy an out-of-work guy's labor, it's not inflationary because you just pay him scale anyway. Which I think for solar farms probably should be about $20 an hour to start and topping out maybe around $50 an hour. Maybe we could go even further than that. In Europe, skilled workers make a lot. And we can do that because 3/4 of the money right now, or the value that you create working for a corporation, you don't get. You only get 25% of what you actually create. That's why wages haven't gone up since 1970. Productivity of labor has gone up 3 times. You do the arithmetic. It's easy. They're ripping you off for 3 times right there. That you can prove with the simplest of stuff from the federal government. Is get on run DuckDuckGo. Don't use Google. Get DuckDuckGo. Run that. Find the stats, and you can work that out for yourself. Now, that means the Green New Deal is really not a big expense. Even it looks like a big expense because it's trillions and trillions of dollars. Okay, but it's not a big expense. First of all, because it's going to stimulate the economy and rebuild our manufacturing, get the whole country going again, which is vitally, vitally important. Second thing is, because if we don't do it, we're all going to die. If the United States doesn't cut back, if we don't cut back our military, which is as big as the next 12 militaries in the world, we simply are not going to be able to meet a reasonable carbon emission. And also, if we don't change over to electric, we've got to get these gasoline cars off the road. We're the biggest consumer in the world, and we're the ones that set the example. If we do it, then people could turn around and they could say, well, China and the United States are doing it, we can too. But if we won't do it, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to. It's not going to be enough change fast enough, and we're going to ruin the climate and destroy the planet for human life on Earth. Simple as that. Okay, so that's not. You can't argue against that. Not really. Medicare for All is the same thing. The Koch brothers, who wanted to prove that Medicare for All was a bad idea, and did a survey, and they said, ha ha ha, it'll cost $32 trillion over 10 years to have Medicare for All. Well, that takes care of that, and they rub their hands off, and then everybody says, but we're already spending 49 on the current system. So what you just did is you just proved that we could have a better system for 32 than what we're paying 49 for. And again, you go ahead and do the arithmetic yourself. It's $1 trillion a year. So there's a huge saving in Medicare for All, and it can actually be expanded way beyond the Medicare that I get, and which is really great. I got to tell you, I'm glad I didn't have anything really bad happen to me until I got to be 65, because I would have been screwed. So those are those two things. Well, they have to happen. Why aren't they happening? Citizens United and Buckley versus Vallejo say that corporations are people and they have rights, which is all nonsense. Corporations are property. Corporations are people and they have rights, and they can have a right of free speech, and they can spend as much money as they want, because speech is money, or money is speech, and so there's nothing you can do about it, and you have to let them run the greatest propaganda machine that ever existed on Earth. If you don't think propaganda works, explain to me why the advertising industry is like in the middle of everything that you buy, right? You can't sell anything without advertising, because the other guy's got it. It works way too good to be the one that doesn't have it. Okay, so we simply are not going to get, we're not going to replace congressmen with our vote, which is already threatened by like gerrymandering and all this vote fixing and closing the polls in the areas that are going to vote Democratic and all that. And the Democrats are terrible too. I mean, they kept us from getting Bernie, so I'd put both of the parties together, take Nancy Pelosi and McTurtle, both, just take them somewhere and do something with them, never bring them back. I don't care what happens to them. They don't matter. They just have to be gone. Gone, gone, gone. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we can't vote them out. We just simply can't. But we have to. And the inequality is getting to where people aren't going to be able to eat. We're going to have all kinds of people being evicted. And the pandemic is still going. Hello? We lost 4 times as many people as we lost in the Vietnam War. And that's still going on. We're losing thousands of people a day. We're having a 9/11 every day. And nobody thinks it's a problem? I mean, what planet did you land from? Of course it's a problem. Just even the most moderate amount of concern for human life, which Trump and those don't have it, would tell you, no, we can't do that. So, we have to make these changes. We can't do them by election. And in the Declaration of Independence, Tom Jefferson said, well, it's the right of the people, when the government doesn't suit their needs, to alter or abolish it. Well, it's time to abolish it. It's time to abolish it.